So tonight I have two slideshows that I'm going to show up on the TV above. I hope it's big enough for you to be able to see the pictures clearly. The first is a series of photos with old photos that I've collected from a whole bunch of sources, and then with the modern photo as well. So I started doing this quite a long time ago with encouragement from some people who saw this on Facebook, and ended up publishing a book of which some of them are to do with Woodstock and some of them are to do with Mussoorie. So you see some lovely old photos on the wall. Some of them are ones I've got copies of as well, and I've tried to go to the same place and take a photo of those. So that's the first slideshow. The second one is to do with maps. I've just got two maps here. This is a 1946 and 1968. These are both Survey of India maps, so they're quite good quality and accurate. But there were a lot of other maps that were done before that. So I just want to show you some of the cool maps and how Mussoorie kind of developed. And specifically looking at the value of maps in terms of seeing how things develop. So there's just three little postage stamp kind of areas on the maps which I want to look at through a whole series of dates, just to see when roads appeared, when houses fell down, or whatever. So we'll have a look at that, and hopefully that's interesting to you as well. I just need to make a little bit of a disclaimer in that I'm not really a historian at all. I lived here for quite a few years as a kid, and growing up, history was my most hated subject at school. Yeah, there was a bit of that. I've grown a grey beard to try and look the part. I hope it fools most of you. But I'm a bit ashamed to say that when I was a child, you know, I really didn't explore Mussoorie. I didn't even know that George Everest lived up here in Mussoorie, and what an important bit of history that is. So, you know, we went out and explored, but we always went out and we always climbed Nag Tippa, and we didn't really explore, and, you know, I didn't have access to these maps at all. What really got me going was a chap who's 10 years older than myself, went through Woodstock School, who's been collecting a lot of Survey of India materials and maps. And they're all online, and I can give you access to them if you want. But there's an 1844 map we were talking about just earlier on, which really got me going. I've got maps in my blood. My parents both love maps. They love to see where the old roads used to go and where the new roads are going to go. So I've grown up with that. And with the 1844 map, I mean, it was a long time before the British knew that they were actually doing India, and they still felt like they were here forever. And so all the hillside had their house names on it. And I'll show you the map a bit later on. But I started looking at those houses, and I thought I'd really love to discover and see where they all are. So I made it a little project of mine to sort of just get out there and hunt for these houses and photograph them. A lot of them have fallen down. It's too late to really capture them as they were. But I'm thinking that in 100 years' time, somebody might look at my photos and go, well, that's what they were like in, you know, 2015, 2016. So I've got them all captured, and we'll hopefully store them safely with as many people as possible. I think my interest in the old maps kind of comes from, you know, I really think the British Raj era was really fascinating. The whole colonial era was really fascinating. I know it's not a great thing for India and the people who were sort of ruled, if you like, but it's still such a fascinating time in history, and there's so many hints at what life was like. I lived for a little while down at Herbertpore Christian Hospital, and the people who started that hospital were as close to the British Raj as I ever got. You know, they came out here before the British Raj got sent packing, and they still had some very British ways about them, you know, jolly shabash and all that sort of thing. So I guess it's a little bit of my childhood comes into it. I didn't live here during the British Raj, but, you know, if I had a time machine, I'd certainly want to go back and have a look. So when you start digging and looking at old photos and old places, you start discovering some of these great old shots, and you see the same ones coming up over and over again, because there's a finite number of old photos from the very early days. But obviously it would seem strange to me to not want to go and see what those houses look like nowadays, and so that's what I've put in the book. I'm not trying to sell my book. because it's very expensive. But if you want to see the photos, it's kind of expensive because it's hardback, it's full color, and it's printed on demand, which makes it an expensive book. But what I did was primarily for the benefit of Woodstock alum who love to see the old pictures of Woodstock, how it was. But I'm actually, hopefully before we leave, going to find a nice clear day and go and take a whole bunch more photos of Mussoorie and make a book that's just Landour and Mussoorie then and now instead. So that'll be of more general interest to people, I hope. Anyway, let's start this up and see if we can look at some of the photos. Will that automatically kick on, or is that gone into...
No, it's gone into hibernation. No, just, yeah, it's back. So Mark, before you start, can you just switch off the second switch there?
This one here?
Yeah, the second one, yeah.
That's then, I think.
There we go. No, that's just an aerial shot. I don't know if you know that, but I love Google Earth. And there's all these amazing shots of just the weirdest places. And you can actually do that in Google Chrome. When you open up a new tab, it comes up with a photo of some amazing place. So that's just one of them. Okay, I do have the opportunity to, I think, let's just see if this works. Does that work? You can see that up there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is the very first postcard which I took a matching photo of. And it's looking from the bottom of Mullingar Hill back up towards Mullingar. You can see the modern shot. So that's Mullingar up there. But what was of interest to me was this church here called Standish Hall, which I didn't know about. I didn't even know it was there. It's surrounded with ugly concrete buildings now. But you can still see here, I'm just wondering maybe if this might be a better way to do. Is this too...
It's up on the ceiling.
No,
Yeah.
why not do it with that? It's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can just see the church-shaped windows that are still there visible if you look up in that direction.
Where is that?
It's from the bottom of Mullingar looking up.
If you were walking up Mullingar Hill and you just pass Inam's Taylor on the right, there's a little cut-through. You can walk up there and take a shortcut up to Mullingar Hill rather than on the motor road, and you'll pass the church right there on the right. It was built with money left over by Landour Smith, who did a lot of good works around the world. When he died, his wife put the money into building Standish Hall. Landour Smith also had a school running out of Mullingar Hotel, which, I mean, Mullingar is what we called it, but it had probably, I don't know, at least 5 or 10 different names over the history of the place.
But that photograph is actually from the Gurdwara Chowk.
Yeah, just at the very bottom. Yeah. Okay. So does anybody recognize where this is? Because it took me a while to work this one out.
That's the jail.
Yeah, it was a prisoner jail, so we're kind of...
Theatre Lane, Theatre.
Yeah, it's called Theatre Road because up that road, just behind on the right, there was a theatre. We've got some old pictures of that. I'm not going to show them to you tonight. It later on was a gymnasium, and then it fell down, and the ITMs built a great big ugly thing like they like to do on top of where that used to be. But my new shot is out of date already, because if you've walked past Kellogg Church, you'll see that whole guard room / prison has been worked on quite a lot just recently.
No, that's Kellogg.
Kellogg is, I don't know what denomination it is, but
It's non-denominational now.
yeah, it's interdenominational.
Presbyterian.
It's got its own flavor.
Yeah.
This was another postcard that challenged me for a while. It says Barlow Gunge, and I thought, okay, Barlow Gunge, but I really can't think where that was. And then I realized it's just that man on the road is the road, the original walking track up to Mussoorie, and on top of the hill is JP Hotel. So it looks. The road's widened a lot, and the photos from a bit further back. Just another kind of disclaimer is, when you're taking a photo, sometimes you think you've got it right, and then you look on the screen and go, I should have been way further back. And sometimes you just can't get the same shot because we've got a lot more trees than we did. When the British came, they chopped down everything to build houses and keep warm. And the trees mean you have to kind of stand at a different angle a bit to get the same shot. This one is obviously Bata Falls, but what I love about it, which I didn't really realize to start off with, is that there's two men in this picture
Yeah.
in their Garwali, outfit. And here, I was waiting for these two jolly jokers to get out of the photo, but they didn't, so I just took the photo. So this is what's happened to Indian men. They're throwing their clothes away and they're running around in red underpants. This is a photo of the road going down behind Balahasar Estate, which has just recently been resurfaced. So the building's up on top where the thing is. That's the Weinberg Allen School specifically. And what I quite like is down here there's a house called Ingleside, and it's still there, and you can still see the sloping driveway going down to it. That's still the same driveway. This original servants' quarters is being developed into something much better.
The White House now, right? That's the White House Hotel?
Oh no, White House Hotel is down beyond Barlowganj.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is just
This is all with the school actually.
so yeah.
Weinberg Allen.
By the school.
So Bala Hisar was the name of this estate, and it's named after a place in Afghanistan. It means rocky outlook or some such thing like that. And so it's got some famous stories about it in terms of where there was an Afghan royal man, locked up there for a while.
Do you know if the Engels who were connected with Weinberg were a part of the same Engels family years ago and came back to it? Because that's where...
For Ingleside?
Yes, that's
Oh, I
where
don't
he
know.
lived when he passed away.
Okay, no, I don't know that
He
story.
was amazing in candle making. I've never seen anyone like that. He was
That's
so
right.
good. Mr. Engels.
Okay.
And he was headmaster of Weinberg Allen for some years.
Okay. Just near there is that house called Oakless as well.
Yes.
It's just got a new sign up. I love that because the guy had a sense of humor because there's Oakland and Oakville and Oak this, Oak Dean, Oak that, and says, well, there's no Oaks here, I'm calling this Oakless. And this is just a view behind Camel's Back Road, an old photo with 18, can you read the number? I can't, 18 something.
It's 1886.
Yeah, and it's got a nice Hawa guy sitting there, which didn't used to be there. Here's a picture overlooking Surabhi's house, before and after the clock tower. So,
Castle Hill Estate.
yeah, it's Castle. You can see the,
Castle, yeah, on top.
before the trees built, the Castle Hill Estate, I mean, there were two houses there in 1844 called Woodcroft and Green Mount. And there's quite a few other houses on the estate. One I quite like, which was built on this little flat area here, is called Dunedin. It wasn't a New Zealander, which we have a city in New Zealand called Dunedin, but it would have been some Scotsman would have built that. It's been built and fallen down since. This is another very old photo which comes out of the Woodstock archives, and of particular interest is this building right here, which is a church called All Saints Church. You can see it on this map, but not on that map. So we can't get to it because the only way to get there would be to go through the Survey of India, and they're very restrictive. Although I did do some cut climbing and came up to that church from below, hoping to find the church in ruins, but it had been totally removed and a house had been built, and that's in ruins now. So it's going back quite a long time.
That's actually also private property also there now.
It is private property. It's not actually part of the Survey of India, so
No,
you
it's
can
not.
theoretically get up there and back without interfering. But I just took advantage of being there, wandered around and came out the gate, and there was no chowkidar there at the time, so
He was murdered many years back.
I didn't get locked up this time.
Don't talk
Yeah, I
about
should
it.
say one thing I meant to mention at the beginning is that there's a lot of people here with a real interest in history in Mussoorie who know a lot of great stories that I don't know about. So please, this isn't a lecture. This is let's have a nice discussion and interject with stories anytime we want to. That's cool. Whitewash, which I think is really what's holding it together. But it's the Lich Gate going into the cemetery on Camel's Back Road, and there's a lot of famous people down there. Anybody recognize where this shot is? The bridge is the clue.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this building here is called the Rectory, and I can't get the same shot, but it's looking down over the top of Chardi Khan, which is just on the left there. The Rectory, I'm guessing, used to be where the minister for St. Paul's lived, the priest, whatever. but that's just a guess. It's now an ITM building and it's behind barbed wires, and to get there you take that first drive that goes up if you're going along the Chukar towards New Laltuba.
So where were you standing when you took
I just went up, if you go up towards Rokeby, there's a driveway that cuts back up past the temple. And I went up there and just climbed over the fence and got the best view. But this is another classic example where you can't get the exact same angle because of trees. So this building hasn't changed all that much. There's some nice original features, but this is Clark's Hotel opposite Chick Chocolate.
Well, they've now built a...
And Clark's Hotel is named after Mr. Clark, who along with Mr. Trevelyan were famous tailors from London. I think I might be wrong, but I think they operated on Savile Row, which is, is a famous area in London where you get suits made if you can afford it. Other people go to Hong Kong.
In that previous picture, they've come up with one more floor over the new one.
Oh, since the new one?
Yes.
Yeah, they've come up with one more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there is a floor.
So, yeah, they've not matched it with the original one.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'll have to go and have a look. I haven't even noticed that. I zoomed by on my motorbike too quickly. This lovely old photo, which is just taken out of a book that's been published here in Mussoorie by Ganesh and Ruskin, is a very old photo of the front of Clark's Hotel. And back in the days when there were rickshaws and...
Clark's Hotel. This
Yeah.
is in library, right? This picture?
No.
that's
This is opposite Chick Chocolate. It's the same hotel.
I'll show you a picture later of those arches that matches that picture perfectly in Library Bazaar.
No, though that is still there. That's just been changed, in fact. We're talking about the Walnut Grove, that building. No, I understand which building.
Yeah.
But this is actually where it used to be a cloth, a drapery house. So this was Trevelyan and Clark. Very, very famous during that period, during the British period.
So both buildings looked identical.
Many arches were like these at that
Are you
time.
talking about the Whispering Windows building?
Yeah, Whispering Windows, yeah.
Where's the one in library that... Okay.
I'll
I'm just quoting what was said. I did look behind all the mess that's there nowadays, and the door is kind of like the one only feature that's you can actually see, and the door looks similar, but it's impossible to see the arches. They've all gone or changed or something. I can't remember now. This is one of these lovely etchings. There's three of them here, and I've got a picture. This one I'll show you. This one here I was really puzzled with because the mountain in the middle I could never kind of work out. It says on the bottom, it says Landour, and I was always thinking from the Woodstock side, it's not Witch's Hill. What is it? Unless the artist has really been smoking something interesting. But what makes it a bit confusing is the fact that, once again, there's so many trees. But if you go around the Chukar from Chardukan and halfway to Wolfsburn, up on your right there's a landslide. And I went up to the top of the landslide, and I went to the left-hand side, and then I went to the right-hand side to get kind of two views through the trees, and that's why the telephone lines don't match up. But I was trying to match the distance. So that's actually Castle Hill Estate in the distance. And down here you can see kind of the beginning of Taylor's Flat, the beginning of the bazaar, and Mullingar. If I'm wrong, tell me so, but I'm pretty sure that's the very beginning
That's just the
of
building.
Do you have a date for that?
That's 1825.
That sketch?
1825.
1825, wow.
Who was the chap who came through and wrote the book and
Yeah.
put all these etchings in his book? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
who's the artist?
George Francis White.
White, isn't it?
So he mentions actually staying, he mentions Mullingar, but he stayed at the Abbey.
At the Abbey, all right.
Yeah, so
Yes,
he
that's
mentions,
right.
he has the entire account of the Abbey, which
That's
is
right.
very, very interesting.
True.
And you know, what you were mentioning earlier, the difference is why you cannot make out. So I've seen some of his early sketches. So the sketches would be sent to England to be turned into lithographs or plates.
Right.
So always there was a difference in when they would make the plates, because the plates would then be steel engraved.
Right.
So there was always a difference.
And also there's a little bit of exaggeration and steepness of hills in some of the old paintings.
See, because
Like
these
those-
were also like travel books.
Yes.
So they were like a travel
Yes.
advertisement. See
Yeah.
how beautiful these places
Who were
are.
the two brothers who came here back in the 1700s?
Mm.
and painted pictures all over India. But when they did mountains quite often, either we've had serious erosion, but I think they tried to dramatize and make it all look a bit grander by making hills steeper. And here's the backside of Kohinoor, so even back then it was falling down. But this old building here was a place where they did the lodge, and when the British left, it was still used for many years as for wedding receptions and things like that. But it's fallen down and has now been replaced with a substation for the power company, where they pretend to keep the system going. Okay, I've got 3 pictures here. This one is an old postcard which many of you will have seen, which is Jaripani, and this is Halfway House, where back in the days when people walked up, and you have to realize when you look at the history of Mussoorie, for more than half the time people were walking up here. It's relatively recent, in fact much less than that. Relatively recent that people have been able to drive right up to the mall. So this was probably a little bit later on. It was quite a nice wide road there. It wasn't sealed though. But Halfway House is famous for being a place where people would stop and have scones and a cup of tea, so have a bit of a break on the way up. And just in the background here, you can see a monument, which is to the first white guy to die up here.
That's the grave.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it actually fell down or went into disrepair, and Oak Grove back in 2011 built this. So if you're going down through Jaripani, going downhill, you have the big hairpin bend where you can skip off and go down the walking track. Right up on your left, you can see the back of this. So you can just walk in the driveway to Oak Grove School, and it's just 20 meters down there on the right. But so this is Sir Charles Bart, who died in 1828. So he was on his way up here to recuperate,
Yeah, didn't make it.
but didn't quite make it. Poor chap. So this is a nice view from the side of Gun Hill. I haven't got the angle exactly right, but up here, as you can see, I can't see it so well in this picture, but here's about Clark's Hotel about here. And then you're coming down through the mall here. So in actual fact, this field is still this field, but this is Connaught Castle Hotel. And Surby, you mentioned Walnut Grove is just sort of tucked up around to the right there, which I think is kind of infamous for being a den of iniquity and gambling and things like that back in the British days. And Walnut Grove's quite a nice building to visit because there's still some nice original features inside that. So this building has gone through quite a few different names, but Himalaya Hotel, it was the Alliance Bank on the 1922 map, and it's now the State Bank of India. And the nice feature about it is that up on the railing you can still see VI, which is Victoria
Empress of India.
Imperial, I don't speak Latin, but stands for Empress, but it's spelled with an I. So it's a
So
nice
this was
shot.
actually also sanatorium. So I've just got a diary from someone who's donated it to me, and her grandfather actually came here to the sanatorium. So, because the sanatorium in the Kant was for the army people.
Yes.
This was more for people who were not non-military,
Non-military. Okay.
yeah.
So that's one other.
I
In
in
the
fact
same
discovered
building.
yes, in this was a Himalaya Hotel Sanatorium. So I have like 2 pictures of
Well,
this
that's
from
cool.
different angles.
Recognize this place, anybody?
Yeah.
Butterghat.
Butterghat.
Jabrcade.
Sorry, Jabalgate.
Yeah,
Jabalgate.
Okay.
So this is 1970s as well, before it was paved. Jeff's got a nice old photo of Teary Road getting paved the first time, just near Cozy Corner, I think the photo's taken. So frankly, I don't actually remember it being rough. It's just been such a long time ago, and I've been back so many times. But,
We have some pictures of buses, when the bus went over at South Hill.
oh
We
yes, I
have a
remember.
picture from, I think that time, of a bus having trouble on Turing Road farther out, and
Okay,
it was all dirt.
older, yeah.
So when was this road built? Like, because there was another, the main old road was actually the other one.
I'll show you that on the
This-
map. No, the lower one, the new,
The lower one was built for
This is new.
Teary Lake.
This was all.
This is the old one.
Okay, this is the old one.
This
Sorry,
is
I
the
got the one wrong.
this is the old, yeah. But the interesting thing about Jabrcade is that the road you're looking at here didn't exist in the 1844 map. If people wanted to go out towards the east, they would go to the top of the hill and they would cut down through Ferry Glen. and that was kind of the main track out.
But this was not like an old village, Jabbergate, no.
Jabbergate, like I think a
First
lot of
Jabbergate
villages.
isn't. Second Jabbergate, I think.
Because Suakoli is some part.
No, Suakoli is way out.
Yeah, so Suakoli is like an old establishment of the
Yes.
old.
But not what they call Suakoli now. The original
No,
Suakoli is
no,
before
not
that.
the
But
old, the old Suakoli.
what happens generally, and if you go, for example, it's going out to Tingling Point, because it's a very new road, you can see how the original villages were down there. A road came in, those are the nice old classic looking houses, big ugly concrete things built up here on the road to service and make business from people traveling by. So Jabbergate, I read somewhere, was a village that was quite down in the valley,
Okay.
and they own a lot
Could
of
be
land.
because they
obviously.
have a major water shortage. So could
Yeah.
be where the water
Yeah.
source was.
Yes. So coming up here's a problem.
People from
So
Kimoya
this is
come.
out of date as well because there's a new restaurant built on top of here. If you've been out there, by Mrs. J.
That does a really good Girwali thali.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Kellogg Church has been through quite a lot of different facelifts over the time, and I think this was probably the original look. So here's Kempty Falls, which we motorbiked down just past the other day, and
But that's
it's
with the road.
it's even more crowded than that. But I had to use my panorama shot from the road opposite in order to get the beginning of the buildings to the end of the buildings.
Yeah.
Because it's not just shops and souvenirs, it's also hotels down there. And there's even, you can just see a bit of color right there, that's the aerial ropeway which takes people down. Whereas in the olden days you used to walk down this little zigzag path, if you can just see it.
Well, you got more than two out here.
Yeah, I know.
They wouldn't get out of your picture?
It's funny how the men will strip down to underpants and the women go on with their full shalwar. That's good. Whereas the British gentlemen wouldn't even take their shoes off and dip
Or
their
their
toes.
hands.
Frightfully cold, old chap. So that's a nice view of the library. You've probably seen that postcard. Back in the days when the roads looked incredibly wide.
Yeah.
So the new buildings that were built obviously sort of
Encroach.
Yeah.
Now,
When we need more space, they move to the original.
do you have pictures that show the light post in the middle of the chowk?
Yeah, the original.
Because that's a fascinating light post that
Yeah.
helped me put pictures together,
Mm.
which was only taken down 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was only recently.
The one in the center of the library.
Yeah.
chart.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
You
it
can
was just
see
taken
it.
off like
Yeah.
to like
It was very
2000.
ornate and it kind of dates back to the
14,
Gologi power station, yeah.
Yes.
It dates back to after they moved the gazebo off to the side.
Yeah.
Well,
The
that's been
bandstand,
moved
yeah.
so many times.
It's
like
been
10
moved
years.
twice, I think.
Yeah.
And,
No, even more. That's been like always going there.
and
Like
they've got a
that.
new
It's like,
fountain in the middle now. So you recognize this? This is the
walk to
lower mall.
Christchurch. Christchurch.
Yeah, but just below the
But
Indian
minibus.
Railways
Yeah.
office.
The railway station.
but the lights are so interesting actually.
Yeah, and you can see the light here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was
Yes,
Very
that's-
interesting.
nice.
That would be lit every evening manually.
That's a lovely nice.
They're all
oil
view.
yeah,
Oil lamps.
would be kerosene at that time actually.
Yeah.
This is a road we've all walked down many times, but it kind of looks so empty that we almost don't recognize it. But it's just the beginning of Coolry. Picture Palace is down there on the left.
Wow.
A rickshaw waiting for somebody with.
A lot of these hotels actually came up only in the 70s and 80s. Actually, not that old.
So there's a clock tower before it disappeared with the Union Bank on the right hand side. And this old photo of the Coolry Hill Bazaar is there's various different shots of that.
Road is quite-
And in the distance you can see this is the Childers Estate just here. New Log Timbers just sitting there.
Can't see it in this one. Charleston.
Oh, wow.
So this is a house which in the old maps was called Bellevue, which is another interesting thing. You know, Prakash's Devdar Woods used to be called Fairview. But right next to Fairview is a house called Bellevue, and also one called Bella Vista, or Buena Vista.
Buena Vista.
So all three of those mean the same thing, which tells you that they were named before the trees grew. all had a lovely outlook. But this is another bell view, but such a long way away. You know, it's private property, you can't go in there, but Sunita just told me it's for sale if you want to buy it.
Now its name is Radha Bhavan. That's what people say.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Radha Bhavan.
It's called Radha Bhavan now. It was named after Mr. Radha.
And it's the place wherein you can stand and look through the Mussoorie. The whole picture of Mussoorie. You can
And
see
the
all
best
this.
sunset
Gorgeous.
actually.
Yeah.
And the snow views.
Yeah.
The best sunset actually.
It's not on the main ridge line, but it's on a place looking from a high point. You can see the snow's up behind library, and you can see the dune. But the point I was going to make about Radha Bhavan is the fact that, you know, down in Delhi, so many of the old British names have gone, street names have been turned into some Indian politician who wanted to be famous. And we all have our different point of views, but houses up here which were built by the British, I think, even if the original name was Indian or Portuguese or something, it doesn't really matter. The fact is, it's a name, it's got an original name. I think it's really kind of special to keep the original name of a house. It goes along with the history of it. And it seems a bit sad that, you know, Mr. Radha thought, I'm going to name it after me, Bellevue. Maybe he thought, oh, there's already a house called that. So this is a view down over the municipal hall and the club and where the town hall was and is no longer. And this is kind of looking across from within the surveyed India property as well. This is another view looking down towards library, but before the library was built, so it's pre-1843. And this is the chapel that belonged to the school that was up there before the Savoy was built in
Mussoorie
1900.
Seminary.
Well, it was called Maddox School.
Maddox, yeah.
And Maddox School, a lot of the kids were kind of heading towards particular professions, and at some point the parents thought, this is all from Virgil's book, it's not really providing what we need, so the kids stopped coming there, and when the numbers got so small, they actually finished up for the last few years at the Abbey. And then the school just collapsed, and this property was knocked down and the Savoy was built. This old photo on the left you won't have seen before because it belongs to my brother. Because he married the grand niece of the lady who built LCH. So this is from the old photo album, but what I like about it, this is a lady who built LCH, so, Kiana?
Joyce Robinson.
Joyce Robinson, thank you. It's almost there. But what I like about it is that up here is what we used to call the Rotten Hut as kids, but it's White Park Forest. It's the Muslim house that got burnt down in partition, and it's got a roof. So this is 1938 when LCH, Landour Community Hospital, was getting built. None of us could ever see that with a roof. So I've got one other photo which shows it even clearer. But so there's the ruin down there in the valley which we can see, and it's quite a landmark. It's kind of a reminder of tough times in history, which every house in Landour can look down on. So this is a photo that we were discussing before Sunita has just walked out the door. But this is, I think it's called the Gap, and it's if you go right up behind, if you go in towards Radha Bhavan, but you keep going up as if you're going towards Dunsburg Court, but you don't go to Dunsburg Court, you keep going up, and you go through this gap, and you come to what used to be called Albert Lodge, and on the left-hand side are the water tanks, which goes down. So this is the top of Vincent Hill almost. But you can just see down here the tower from the Chateau de Caputala, and there it is there. And this is the Savoy, so before the Savoy was built. So one coolie and one man bossing the coolie, maybe, I don't know.
That's
There's a nice old photo I've also got, but once again the Choki guard gets in the way, which says Electric Picture Palace. And, you know, we wouldn't call a cinema electric, but back in those days, cinemas were kind of gas-lit. You know, pump-up mantle lamps providing the light, whereas Mussoorie got electricity before Lucknow did. And so having an electric cinema was a big deal, and people would come and see this beautifully bright picture. This is approximately the same position, but the main point is the then and now in terms of transportation. We've gone from rickshaws with 2 or 4 coolies to cycle-rickshaws.
And we're about to now go to e-rickshaws.
Oh, yeah, e-rickshaws are also there.
Which is about to come.
Yes, that's right. I've seen
Yes,
I've
for
seen
two,
one or two.
No,
Yeah.
we are about to change actually. I think in a year or two we'll be totally e-rickshaws.
Totally.
Does anybody recognize this nice old painting? It's an interesting view because we don't wander up around the top of the hill, around near the ITM area, but once again it's very difficult to get the same shot. But that's actually St. Paul's looking down the valley from right above Chardagan. And there's St. Paul's now sort of lost between the trees. And there's a path that goes up there. If you want to go up to St. Peter's, if you go through Kellogg, the chowkidar will stop you unless you're going to Mass, which is only once a month. But if you go up this way, there's nobody to stop you. So it's a good way to get up and have a look around if you want to. This is a lovely colored version of this here, which is another etching, or is it a painting? I don't know. But it's got the same. It's got the same cloud formation, so it's exactly the same thing. But this has been tinted later on. But what you're looking at is you're looking at the abbey. And if you've not been to the abbey, it's private property. But if you go as just kind of 2 or 3 people and you're nice to the chowkidar,
We've been.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I've been 10 times with different people, but I've started going to Blucher's Hill instead because there's nobody to bother. But I've been up a few times where there's not been anybody, but quite often the chowkidar there will come out and say, "What are you doing?" Except probably in Hindi. So I mean, this is the abbey, and you can see the buildings before they fell down. This is Snowdon Estate, and on top of that, there's now a 90% finished concrete hospital built by a Hindu mission trust.
Has it begun?
Pardon me?
Has it begun?
Oh, it's almost finished. It's almost finished, but it's not operating. No, I haven't been up for a while, but
Always wonder how they go.
when you look up from Hatipao, it's years there, you know, from the village, and you can see that there's no windows and it's not been painted yet. So this is the hill to the side of Hatipao, which has been, this one, which has been severely quarried. And this has got to be Banok Tibba, but seriously, it doesn't look like that. And I'm just not sure that it ever did. But you can see it's a much more rounded hill, but that's one hill, that's the next hill, and that's the other hill behind. So this is Hatipao itself, which is that one. Yeah. So this is taken from Blucher's Hill, and if you've not been there, this is where I take people now instead of the Abbey, and I've taken, you know, exchange students and different friends and people who want to have a look, probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 times. But there's a ruin up on top called the Highlands, and it's a lovely old ruins on British, and it's got some nice features still there. And then Blucher's Hill is just a little knob, just to the east of it, and it's actually quite a high point. Lovely view over Happy Valley and down to the dune. Anybody recognize this?
That's looking from Rialto back
Yes,
towards
exactly.
Clark.
So this is Quality Hotel, Quality Restaurant as it was.
Oh.
Still call it that. And this is the Clark's Hotel just up at the top end. So
By the way.
I have to give to that.
Yeah.
So this is just the mall near the Kacheri. Is that how you pronounce it, Kacheri?
One of the earliest kacheris, actually, one of the first kacheris
Law courts, yeah.
in the north.
Right.
Oh, really?
We had
I go on my motorbike every time now. It just saves maybe 10 minutes. And again, you come up right at the Jarupani turn off. It's not a great. In fact, last time I went up, there were 2 cars coming down because there was a
Now
landslide.
they can.
There was a landslide which limited you to a motorbike, but they've fixed it all up.
You go straight up to the walking roads, Octroy Point.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Is that road motorable now?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Some saying that
It
cars come down.
just opened about a month, 2 months
Yeah.
ago.
Little Tata Nano. Very tight lock. So, yeah, this is looking from up near Radha, on the way towards Radha Bhavan down over. You can see the Kaputala,
Yeah.
and you can see this void. But here, there's no Kaputala. So this is before 1900.
I'll tell you, Kaputhala Palace was built in the year 1899. The first foundation stone was laid in the year 1896 in September,
Yeah.
and then it was built by the French architect named J.S. Elmore. and it was built for the Maharaja, the Jagatjit Singh.
Yes.
Ahluwalia.
Did you come to the presentation at the Savoy, which?
No, I was not there.
Oh, you should have come.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Now these guys, they have that, what do you call it, the Mother Horlicks, they produce Mother Horlicks also. And his son is working for the Louis Vuitton. He's the advisor to the Louis Vuitton in France. His son is Chaturji Singh Ahluwalia. So they're working.
We had a wonderful talk by Cynthia about the whole history and how
Yeah.
the Maharaja who built it just loved visiting people in the Loire Valley.
It took
So-
almost 3 years to build this palace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was finished in 1901 is what I've heard.
1899.
That's what
September
she
1899.
told us 1901. I think.
1901?
No,
Yeah.
it's
Actually, they
also-
added 2 more towers, so maybe that was...
Yeah, because it's
That's
written,
yes.
because it's embedded in the front of the chatty.
Yes,
Yeah.
There's a
yes.
stone where this thing is embedded.
Okay.
That it was built. It was late in the year 1896.
Give me
What she
telephone
told us
number.
was the
Give me
foundation
an
stone
invitation.
was laid in 1899.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think what we can see of there might be, I'm guessing, might be just the corner of St. Helens or Helens.
St. Helens, because
St.
there's
Helens.
another cottage which comes up there,
Yeah.
which names St. Helens Cottage.
Yes.
It was built later, after the cherry was built. So maybe that another
After
cottage
the
was
what was
built
built?
like 1901, I
I mean,
guess.
she told us it was the first.
No,
That's the older
but I think
one,
the 2
St.
Helens, St. Helens are both older than the chateau.
Yeah, because they lived in St. Helens.
Because there's a small cottage further up, which is just below the road going around to the Waverley.
No, that's another one. That's another
Yeah.
one. That's above. That's the left side.
But both of those are on
of the
maps.
palace.
Both of those are on maps that predate the Karputala
Mm.
chateau, as far as I know.
St. Helens is even in the 1860s
Yeah.
maps.
Does anybody recognize this? Woodstockers?
Yeah, Mount Hermon.
Yeah, well done. It took me quite a while to think about that one.
I was there when they were starting to rebuild, they renovated a new stockpile.
It really, yeah, it was owned by the
Kejriwal's.
Kejriwals, yeah. And they kind of,
That's Woodstock.
people dream about coming up here all the time for their holidays and life just gets too busy, so houses get into
That's Mount
disappear.
Hermon.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember the old one.
Okay, okay, alright. Right.
So, Dusri Dulan.
It's kind of, there's not much that
There's a
looks the
movie
same.
shot there actually.
Even the roof in the middle's gone up. Woodstock changed it quite a lot.
Well, that was a good thing.
Okay,
That's,
I looked at this for a long time and could not work out where it was. There's this kind of field down in the bottom right-hand corner. And we made friends with friends of the Nagarwalas, and we went out to visit her place, and I went out in the backyard and I went, "Bah, there it is." So it's actually, those of you that ever were young enough to go to
Oh, wow.
Deodar's,
Uh,
and behind Deodar's there's another building, which something hall, which used to be part of Deodar's.
Wow.
Can't think of it, but that's the original building behind Deodar's.
So this is,
So the field down the bottom, I think, is probably maybe the Gymkhana field, or maybe it's just the field before.
So this is you
So-
mean between Woodstock and the Jabbarkhet area?
No, this is Happy Valley.
Happy Valley.
Oh, Happy
Happy
Valley.
Valley.
Yeah. So this is the Abbey,
So Gymkhana.
and this is Everest House.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the actual zoom. Oh, actually, before I do that, you can just sort of see
you can
the.
see Everest House?
Yeah.
No, I couldn't see it.
Oh, you can see
There's
the
like on the
mountains.
top.
I
Hey,
looked.
now I got
Sorry.
mixed
Yeah.
confused with the Devdar.
Devdar, huh?
So this is just the corner of Banok Tiba going up there on the right. And then I zoomed in on the actual old map, and you can see this old house was called Loch Letter, and it's the ruins. If you take the original walking track up to the Abbey, not the motor road, and then the Abbey you can barely see on the top there. And this here is Grant Castle, which is a wonderful double-story ruins that's still there, sitting at the bottom. So the very first map that I've ever seen that has Mussoorie mentioned, I was just saying to Jeff and Susie before,
okay.
old habits die hard. Susie Swain.
Yes, okay.
This is 1818, which is before Landour, Mussoorie. You know, there wasn't even a hunting
what
box.
year?
1818. So it's actually a map of the dune, and I'll show you some zoomed in pictures of it. But just the area circled red, it's kind of on another map, and it says very interestingly that last sentence, names and sites Mussoorie and Landour inserted much later. These stations did not exist before 1827. So there were houses, but they weren't actually named. So somebody's taken an old map and just for the fun of it, added on. You can see Mussoorie, Landour, and Church. And then
Where?
Bazaar. I really don't know what.
I see church.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should use this highlighter. Oh, not the highlighter. Sorry, the
Point.
So it was
They drew on the old.
So where does it say bazaar?
This is says Bazaar right here, and I honestly think it's just somebody's having a guess at Landour Bazaar, but it's in the wrong place really. Anyway, if you zoom in on that same 1818 map to the dune, this isn't really Mussoorie, but you can see down here
Gurudwara.
Dera or Gurdwara.
Yeah.
So the beginning of, in fact, there's some maps which only say Gurdwara because the Ram Rai, Guru Ram
Guru Ram
Rai,
Rai.
Sri Guru Ram Rai, he was the one who came from the Punjab, kind of excommunicated by the other Sikhs, brought his people and made an encampment here, a dera in the dune, and so there was a while that it was called one or the other, but this is Hati Barkala, this is Jharkhand, this is Malsi Deer Park,
All small villages.
this is Nalapani or Kulunga. If you haven't been to the memorial on the very bottom end of Sahastradhara Road, which is famous for being the memorial to both sides, the Nepalis and the British, it's a nice little site. And down here is Captain Young's house. So Captain Young had a very grand house in St. Joseph's Academy, which a few years ago was pulled down, but this is obviously another place he had before he...
And Frederick Pahadi Wilson's Astley Hall was very grand.
Harry Wilson was...
Astley Hall,
Oh, right.
his summer house.
Before he moved to
Yeah,
The
Torquay.
winter
Yeah.
house. The
Yeah.
winter house was the Astley Hall. So
Then Parade
huge.
Point for the summer.
Yeah, it was like huge orchards.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Gandhi Park was the orchard area.
So,
I remember just the Dilaram area being orchards.
I've actually compared this map quite closely with the 1990 Survey of India map, and in actual fact, if you go in here, there's places like Danda, and then there's a whole bunch of these. Here's Raipur, Raeepoor, Raipur. So, I mean, a lot of these other places exist as well. I've just highlighted a few that everybody will know, I think. Now, this is the 1831 map, and it's the first kind of pucka map of Landour, Mussoorie that I've ever seen. And things that I love about it is that, number one, there's no house names. There's little red dots all over the map, and they're labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then the key on the left-hand side here is the names of people who lived there. So, you know, they may have decided, okay, Woodstock House, I'm going to call this house Woodstock, but this map didn't put the names, it just put the people's name on. Maybe once again thinking, we're here forever, you know. I don't know. Or maybe this was just kind of a local directory. I'm going to visit, you know, Major General whoever, and you knew where to go.
But it's such simplicity.
Can you read
know?
the? Can you read the?
Yes.
Can you read Main Street?
Yes. In fact, this is actually in Virgil's book,
Yes.
and I tried getting a good copy. Virgil said, well, I've got it from Hugh Rayner in the UK, and he won't allow me to share it. Hugh sent me a copy, which is rubbish, you can barely read it. So during the holidays, I went to the British Library in London, and I saw an original copy. And it's not big, it's only like this big. So I photographed it.
Is it
Big post office bank for the whole bazaar, so quite significant. And at different stages, I think 1916 it was one of the stages where the cantonment said, listen, we can't be bothered taking care of the bazaar, we'll give that to the municipality to manage. And they slowly came more and more to the top of the hills. And there's not much land that comes below the chukkers, one or two places that pokes down here and there, but they've really kind of retrenched back up into there.
So originally the cant was actually the clock tower, right? So the Landour,
Right,
yeah, Parade Point House.
okay.
That's the reason Parade Point House, because the parade's began
Parade.
from there.
Started from there, okay.
Then in
So,
1916,
on this map, you can see a few N's here, and in the key, N is Major Young. So you'll see up there, he's called Captain Young, that's the name of this room. So right through his time from when he first came out here. And he's one of these amazing guys who came out here as an ensign, right at the bottom, and worked his way right up to general. Whereas his friend Mr. Frederick Shaw, who we first came up here hunting with, he came out here as a top aristocratic
Governor
sort of
General's
family,
son.
so he was automatically straight into an officer rank.
Yeah.
So interesting comparisons between those two guys. But in here you can see right here is
That Childers?
yeah, this is Childers right on the end here, and down here is Oakville,
Okay.
and this is Lau Tiba.
Then you can see the Flag Hill Road
That makes so much sense.
off of,
Yes, going down the back here. Yeah.
yeah.
And so this is kind of like the small. Well, it's not really the small chukker because see, the small chukker comes around the frontier. So
Yes.
originally the road coming around by Bothwell Bank wasn't there. You'd have to go around the back of the hill.
But you can still see that old road back there too, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's
That
still,
old path.
that's still the chukker though.
No, it's
No,
up
no,
above
above
the paved
the-
road.
Oh, you okay? Yeah,
It's,
that's
it's above the paved road, about halfway along from
Oakland's. You can see it.
Fairview or Oakland's, whatever you want to call Fairview now, Devdar Woods
Yeah, there's a level.
driveway
Yes.
to Oakland's. If you're looking up the hill, there's a level in there that's got a lot of trees. You could never, hardly even walk through it anymore.
That's a bit like just before Wolfsburg as well. There's a
Yes.
higher road there.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've also got the beginning of where were we? There's about where Rugby would be, and this is Charbi Khan, the church.
Mhm.
And then the road that goes up to St. Peter's.
Yes, so St. Peter's up on the top of the hill. So this is looking at the library end of on the same map. So we've got Waverley, and here we've got Radha Bhavan, and here we've got a water source, and here we've got I think probably I don't know what that would be. It's about where Albert is. I don't think it's done vertical, but it might be one of those. So down here we have
It's still there.
I think H or G, maybe one of those is St. Helens. And then we come right along the mile. So I'll show you what I've done with this map. Because I didn't know what the names of the houses were, I just had the names of the people, I superimposed the map different ways, but this is what I did for around Landour. I just basically do a triangle between Laltiba, Childers and Kohinoor, and then I did the same thing on a modern map. And in the middle is, I don't know, I can't see what that is now. Is that modern map now? Anyway, it just gave me a bit of a grid to work to so I could kind of compare. So I did make a long list of A's and I named all the houses for all the different places. So that's one way. And then over at the other end of town, can you see the grid I put on there? There's a very fine light blue grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just see here. You can see it sticking out the side there. So I did a grid for both and stretched it and manipulated a bit. And then all these places named A, B, C, D, E, I actually put a yellow donut on top of where it was. And this is how I know that their surveying wasn't really accurate. Because sometimes I'm going, well, that donut's sort of sitting halfway between two houses, which one is it? But there's the Priory and Waverley are all mentioned. Actually, the Priory's off the map, but the Priory is, when you come to Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, up on the right there's a school which has got 4 turrets.
Mhm.
So that's built on the site of where the Priory was. And just down the slope, overlooking the driveway into the thing, is another building called the monastery, which is derelict now.
Mhm.
And those are 2 very old sites. And there's little individual sheets of paper stuck onto a big cloth backing. And down here we've got a legend which is kind of interesting. We'll just zoom in on there, which shows you all the elevations. And what I particularly am interested in is that here it says these are elevations all based from the great trigonometric survey done by George Everest.
Wow.
So these elevations are based on sea level at Kanyakumari
Wow.
and working way up 2,400 kilometers to Mussoorie, bearing in mind the curvature, the changing curvature of the Earth, with triangulation the whole way up. And like I was telling some students when we did an exercise at George Everest Park House, is that a triangle on a piece of paper has inside angles adding up to 180 degrees. But when you have a big triangle spread over a globe, they add up to more than 180 degrees. So all these calculations, all done with logarithmic tables, and double-checked and double-checked and double-checked. An amazing story. If you haven't read it, the book's called The Great Arc.
It's a fabulous book. Read it.
But this has got, I honestly can't read it. Where are my glasses? But yeah, Bano Tiba, Priory Roof, Abbey Spire.
Oh my God.
The Abbey had a spire, fantastic. Park House and Chimney, Badraj, Hathi Palm Hill Station, and the top one is Landour Hospital Chimney.
Wow.
So, and then down here we got Green Mount, which is Castle Hill Estate, Cocky Hall, which is some hotel just above the big blue Shiva on the way up. Mussoorie Church, Christ Church, it says Waverley, something, Mule Shed, down here with Bellevue. So these are all places, Hampton House as well. It is very racist. I love India, but it's very racist. It's racist against some people, but it's very racist towards white people. So it's very easy for me, and I probably shouldn't take advantage of it, but
Yeah, you're working.
it's very easy to go in and just knock on the door, and Annie always used to laugh at me because I'd say, Namaste, mere paas bahut purana naksha hai. And 170 saal. And so I'd say, tell me the name of your boss, Chowkidar, and I'll send you a copy of this old map, and can I have a look at the photograph? And you get the odd cup of tea and what have you, but milk it for all it's worth.
Annie hides under the table.
And it says Tutiri. You can see Tutiri, T-E-R-E. So much for Tehri. Lloyd's Hill is Devdar Estate.
That's the new.
Okay.
Dara calls it Panther Hill, but somehow related to Bhavanish nephew, I think, from Patiala.
Yeah.
And he's built on top of some existing plinth, although he doesn't say he does. Rockville is the haunted house. Claremont and Cloudard, no clue. I've looked and looked, I don't know what that is, whether it's a company or something. Up here, Flag Hill, we have a farm. Here we have Oakville. Here we have Elcott Lodge, Doctor's House, which is kind of where Sanjay's built his palace, in about there. We've got Short's Cottage, which is where Ballet and whoever lived down the back of his family down behind. Sisters Bazaar. Reynard's Lodge is what we call Hamilton House now. Bothwell Bank is an old place. That says Lautiba. This is Oakland's. Glenna is Cozy Nook. So it had another name there.
The foundation.
And here we have a thing which is interesting. It says eyebrow. So, and this road here is called Wolf's Crag, which is the name of Tabor. Tabor was called Wolf's Crag. So, but this is actually naming the road. Bothwell Bank's there. Edge Hill is there as a single house. Woodstock's here as a house, but it's also Upper Woodstock. And then down here we have White Park Forest, although I can't see where the house is, but that's the Muslim house that got burnt out. Mullingar. George's Hope is that very distinctive big building right up above where Kiran and Shiv live. And then we got Hazelwood, and Edenfell is a hospital house. Lancer Lodge is there. The church, St. Paul's Rugby. Slakeville is a ITM school, which is kind of just below the road before, as you go down.
By first.
Here's Wolfsburn. Oh, I haven't got a red triangle on there. St. Peter's Church, Catholic Church. Oh, this is Peterborough. So, where Victor Banerjee lives, it's called Parsonage, but it's actually called Peterborough, which I think is an interesting connection with St. Peter's Church. So his house is not actually in the original location. It's kind of was directly above Seaforth. I think it fell down, and what got rebuilt was kind of a bit closer to the cemetery. I thought the cemetery was on here, but I can't see that. So Children's Lodge is there. So these are all places that we're kind of familiar with, but here's the two places on top of Castle Hill Estate. The Oaks and the Acorns are still houses there. They're still there. This is owned by the Nabha family, Claridge's family, but it's in dispute. It's all locked up and falling apart. And these are all buildings that is where Weinberg School is, which later became the Mussoorie Hotel. Bala Hassar, we talked about Azra Allen is. Airfield is the Nabha Claridge's hotel. That's the name of the estate. And Midstream is where the Skinner family lives. And this is their original property, which has just been rebuilt. And just below there is Sikander Hall, which is actually built by the owner for all those annoying relatives that would come up and make his holiday so noisy. So they built Sikandar Hall as kind of a,
Cute, go over there.
which is quite a grand place.
But isn't Mussoorie the one in which Dr. Senan lives?
No. Mussoorie was before that. Just before Sikandar Hall. It's just been renovated.
Okay.
Brooklands is now the forestry people. Maryville is still in the States and goes right down the valley to a nice greeny area you can see from Landour. Butter Cottage had me confused. I thought, that doesn't look far enough down the hill. And down here we have Butter Village. So this is actually, was replaced by what's the name?
Okay. I understand.
It's JP Hotel is on top of the hill now.
White
But-
House. White House.
No, it's not White House.
No.
There was a castle there where all the manor, the St. George teachers would wander across that bridge and have their
Right.
Whitbank Castle. Whitbank Castle. So manor house, all the St. George people are still called manorites. That's and Fatih Chutz is actually a mystery to me. But see down here it says Fair Lawn. Fair Lawn was actually the name of the palace built there by the Maharaja from Nepal. And so Kamal cottages are all around the side here. You know, the green pointy roofs.
Looks like it shows the gate at Rajpur.
There's
Rajpur.
there's Rajpur itself.
It's coming down.
And this is a stream down the right. I thought there was a toll actually shown here, but one thing I didn't mention is this big ugly black drawing on it is actually a plan for a future road. It wasn't there, and some of them were never built. And I think this, these might have been an optional routes, thinking how are we going to get cars to go up to Mussoorie. And interestingly enough, I mean,
But in 1844?
this was a plan, well not for cars, but a plan for,
Later. You mean
Yeah.
these lines have been added later?
late after the map. So there's Can Craig.
King Creek.
Was there a plan to have a train go to Mussoorie? Because there's if you go on the old trail, there's a
There was, but not up this side, up from Sahastradhara, is my understanding.
Oh, yeah.
And it never happened, it was a financial problem, and also the crumbly rocks, very difficult to build tunnels. There's various stories, I don't know. So there's a house down here called Happy Gardens, which we visited, lovely old original house, and just below it is Dhobi Ghat. And this is a Dhobi Ghat that's right above the Mussoorie Lake.
Yes.
So, this is a stream coming down from a spring which comes down through Dhobi Ghat down to the lake down here. Yeah. So Cliff Cottage is still there, owned by Hampton Court. Cliff Hall was built down here later on, owned by a famous writer. What is his name?
No, this is Hermitage. No, his house is called something else. That's an original house. That's a very old house.
Well, we're talking about somebody differently, maybe.
Yes, maybe we're talking
Okay.
about something different.
Violet Bank is still there. Bassel Hall is now Kasmanda Palace. Grey Castle is still a house up on top of the hill above Christchurch, owned by a Daliwala. Let me have a look around. Little white dog thinks it's an Alsatian.
Another part.
And there's Christchurch. And Parsonage, I'm thinking that's about where Evelyn Hall is, so I'm just wondering if that was somehow linked to Christchurch as well. Braceley is now a hotel down the back. Ilbert
Manor.
What's it called originally? Braceley.
Braceley. And Misty Cot is a very old, tired holiday home for the people working in the telegraph and postal. Maple Haze is taken over by the Lal Bahadur Shastri people. It's right on a corner, just up on the left. It doesn't look anything like an old house. It's been totally changed, but there's the Maple Haze on the sign spelled incorrectly. And there's Waverley and the Priory, which I mentioned, and the Hermitage is in there now. Sorry, not the Hermitage, the monastery. And then way out here, this is kind of like Flag Hill, way out at this far end, which was later called Herne Hill, just overlooking the polo field. There's the Abbey, there's Snowdon Estate, as it was called back then, Hatipao, Park House. Clover Lodge is being rebuilt. And I've been down to look for Scylla House, Scylla Cottage, but I didn't find it. I ran out of time. And Log House is, if you want to find it, I'm 99% sure I've located the plinth, the remains of Log House, which is named after logarithm tables, because this is where George Everest's men used to sit down and do calculations till the cows came home. Cloud End we've all been to, and then way out here to, yeah, there's a temple on top.
Oh.
It's like a 6-kilometer walk from the end of the road.
It's a lovely one.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing for me is that, oh no, it's not that road, but back here, this road here still exists. And it goes right down and it hits the road, the Kempty Falls Road, just before it gets to the jumping up. The last hairpin bend, it comes out there. And you can go up there on a motorbike, 24 kilometers on dirt, nasty road, the whole way up.
Wow.
Ask Annie how dirty it is. Totally gone from landslides and just no need for that. So even in the 1946 map, you can see it's now just become a dotted line here. Down to Kachakana. So yeah, I won't go through this, but this is looking at basically between Kincraig and this is the Claridge's, and it actually takes a long time to really study this. But what I was trying to illustrate here was how the motor road slowly came up the hill, and you know there's Kincraig in the middle of all these pictures. There's Kincraig still, and the road 1922. Hadn't actually come around to join up over here. Wasn't until 1946. Yeah, and you can see the remains here of where the alignment used to be. They realigned it, and eventually by the next map that had disappeared. But there's Kincraig with a government college. It's just called GH School at that point. At this area right here, there's a place called Sunnyview, and you can see on that hairpin bend there. That's where, just below Kincraig, you can go through straight to Barlowgunge, or else you can take the new bypass road, which comes right through Woodstock Estate. But on that corner you can see it's quite a lot of orange, because that, at one point, used to be the terminus for the buses before they got to Kincraig. So it's actually the bus terminus for quite a few years, and then they extended on up to Kincraig. So Sunnyview is mentioned as being the Sunnyview bus terminal station. So just to finish off with, this is just looking very close to Woodstock. So here's Woodstock School, 1922. Here's Edge Hill Villa, which is Woodstock Villa, where Marcus and Roberts live.
And Cozy Corner.
And Timberlake, and Cozy Corners here. So this is quite a main road coming down to Dobiga. No sign of the new road. But what I found particularly interesting is that this house here is called Woodstock Cottage. We call it Tafton. Woodstock Cottage, I'm guessing, was the name they gave to the principal's house.
No, there's Tafton below that.
No, it's not.
No, there is something saying.
Yeah, I know. I'll mention it in a minute. But Woodstock Cottage, when they built the new one where the Longs live, they said, well, principal's house. Let's keep the principal's house as Woodstock Cottage. So they took the name and they thought, well, what should we call this existing house? Well, they've just finished building on top of a place that used to be called Tafton, with the high school building. So they said, well, we'll just take that name and we'll give it to Woodstock Cottage.
So that wasn't the actual Tafton then?
So if you can imagine here at the corner of the quad, the mailroom, you would walk along the driveway out to the main gate,
Yes.
or else you would go up the ramp, around onto the Peace Garden, around onto the Parsonage Terrace, and back down, before there's any buildings there. And then along came the very beginning. So this is before Parker Hall, before the extension, which is the chemistry, the library, and the learning center. Just quite a small
Well,
building.
that's
at the top of
high
the
school without Parker Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Parker Hall was built, well, see, 1946 is wrong, because Parker Hall was built before that. But this map doesn't show it.
Yeah.
And here you can see a dotted line which represents the gym.
Yep.
And this is,
Upper, that's Terry View.
no, this is Upper Woodstock. Terry View's down here.
Terry's down there, yeah.
Yeah. And then finally we've got the gym, shaped like it kind of used to be when
That's
some
the
of us
old
were young.
That's the old one, yes.
And the high school, I can't understand what that is. Looks like Parker Hall
It's
still's
very
not
small.
built, but it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that last map is 1968, which is this one here, and because there's so many houses by 1968, they stopped naming them and they gave them numbers. So, in fact, on this one there's a few numbers as well, but you've got to find all the numbers and find all the houses. And so this is the map that's still available down at the Survey of India if you wanted to buy one. It has 45 rupees written on it, but it costs a bit more than that.
Survey of India, where?
Hati Barkala side. If you go down to Dilaram Chowk and turn right, and you go 1.5 kilometers, on the right hand side there's an entrance into this survey. And we thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry it went on a bit longer, but I hope you're interested and enjoy dinner.
Thank you, Mark. That was worth everything, even the rains and all the wet stuff.